Hi, hello, welcome. This is the interview with Adrian Kenyon, an architect from Baukultur. This clip was used to put together the full-length documentary Behind Closed Doors, The Life of an Architect. If you're thinking of entering the architecture or interior profession, you've got to see it. That link is going to be up above or in the description below to check that out. But without further ado, let's get on with the interview.
I'm Adrian Kenyon, an architect here at Baukultur.
How long have you been doing this for?
I've been doing architecture for about 10 years now, almost. Yeah, I graduated in 2010. Yeah, so I've been at it since then.
Yeah, and why architecture? What made you want to be an architect?
I did a few things before architecture. I started a science degree. I did some engineering drafting for a bit. I worked in cafes and that kind of thing as well, like everyone else did. The appeal of architecture was, at the time when I was looking what I wanted to do, was about the mix of creativity and I guess, you know, the more rational kind of science side of things, which is my background in school. And so being able to mix those two was quite appealing. But, you know, since then I've really sort of found it to be quite a vast profession. You can really explore various areas. It's not a one-phase thing. There's a lot of scope to explore what you're interested in across scales or topologies or whatever you want to do. So, yeah.
I guess for some character development, do you have any hobbies outside of architecture?
Yeah. I like to I like to make things, a bit of kind of woodworking, furniture making, that kind of thing. Can't claim to do it very well, but I quite enjoy doing all that kind of gear. My better half, my wife, she's a sculpture installation artist, so we often sort of collaborate on stuff as well. So she runs the show. I'm kind of the lackey, but I quite enjoy that process of being involved in the less architectural, more ephemeral type projects as well, which is really good fun. Aside from that, ride bikes, chase the kids around at home, and that's pretty much me. So.
How well did your education prepare you for the things you're doing today on a scale of 1 to 10?
That's a very good question. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, it prepared me for what I'm doing today really quite well. So probably, you know, a 9 out of 10. You don't learn everything at uni, but you get a really good grounding in stuff that you don't learn so much on the job. I think in the design, in the thinking. I mean, you learn thinking on the job too, but that design thinking, having a real solid grounding in that is really valuable, and that's predominantly been the work that I've done. A lot of upfront, sort of front-end work in projects, more so than the back end, and in that regard, the uni's been really good. And then all the technical stuff and the other things that you don't learn at uni, you really pick up from people that you work with. I think that's the key, is tapping into the right people to learn what you can from them. So.
What do you think are some of the biggest differences, or perhaps some of the biggest similarities between your education and university compared to the things you're doing today?
One thing I think that got me was the speed at which things happen in practice. That's probably the biggest thing. I started working for a small residential firm when I graduated. We were working for them while I was at uni. Not to say we were moving slowly there by any means, but it was a different pace when I shifted to a bigger firm. It blew my mind how fast things were happening all the time. The grounding that I had at uni was really good for that, because, you know, the base skills that I had enabled me to adapt to that and to pick up the pace. So I guess having to deal with, you know, standards and codes and all that kind of gear is the other part of that too. That, and then the whole contractual side of things you don't really touch on a lot. So learning that kind of gear has been a bit of a learning curve. Similarities, really. Design process is, you know, it varies wherever you go, but I think the structure of, say, studio subjects through uni has been really good, because it gives you that kind of iterative, challenging design ideas and pushing through a design and working through the issues and challenges on each particular project. That was quite a similar kind of style of working, so it's been good.
So if you could sum up your experiences of architecture school in, say, one word or a couple of keywords or one sentence, how would you go about doing that?
Of architecture school?
Yeah.
That was fun. At the time, it was fun, and it was loose, and you could do what you like.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best part about it, looking back. Definitely, the freedom that you had there, without the constraints that you have in reality. I've done some tutoring as well. I always suggest to people, do what interests you. Follow what you want to do now while you can. Once you're in practice, you are sort of you've got a real client, and you've got a project that they want to do. So. The freedom you have at uni is really great.
In the morning, do you have any kind of morning rituals or routines, like, say, whether it's when you first wake up or when you first get to the office? Is there anything that you kind of go to, or do you just get stuck into it?
I think it changes from time to time depending on what I'm working on. There'll be times where I need to be very structured about what I'm doing just to get through what I need to get done. Other times you might be across 4 or 5 different projects, so you're trying to just juggle things and you're just kind of getting by. Some would say you probably need to be more structured in those times too, but personally I don't really have any sort of morning rituals or anything. I'm a roll out of bed, throw some clothes on and try and get to work on time kind of approach. Yeah, not really. I'm not a huge kind of routine person, but I think being organised is pretty critical to managing work. Always have a coffee. Always have a coffee when I roll in. Yeah, that's pretty important.
What are some of the most common activities or most common tasks you're working on?
Well, again, that really varies, but as I mentioned before, I've sort of done a lot of front-end work on projects. Again, that's changing too, sort of across a few different bits at the moment. The design work involved in putting a building together is something I do a lot of. Early concept stuff, and then actually what I really enjoy is that process of taking an idea and then massaging it into something that works. I think that's probably my favourite part of the process. I guess that sort of design development, sketch design phase is where I really enjoy it. But even then, sort of into contract docs, there's still a lot to be said for that. There's it's a really good phase too. But in terms of what I do, I'll do a lot daily tasks. It's a lot of Revit-based work, design testing different options, different ideas, distilling that down, and talking with the team about what works, what doesn't, making decisions and moving forward. I think that's probably the high level summary of what I tend to do. So yeah. And thousands of emails. Yeah, of course. Yeah, clients and consultants and anyone else. Yeah. And actually, back to your learning curve question, how to write a good email has been one. Yeah, and that takes a while to sort of get into the swing of that. So.
What do you enjoy most about being an architect? So is there anything else, I guess?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the best things is having the influence over a space that a lot of people can, enjoy, or hopefully enjoy. Being able to have a say in how spaces go together and know that will affect, hopefully for the positive, people's everyday enjoyment of their workplace or their house or whatever it is, be able to think through some of those moments of their everyday life as well. And I think too, just bringing together the idea and the pragmatics and trying to mesh that together to make that work. That's, the day-to-day where I really kind of enjoy the profession, so yeah.
On the other side then, I guess, what are some of the least favourite things about architecture?
Oh, where do you start? No, not at all. I think architecture is a profession that you have to want to do. I think if you don't want to do it, you're probably not going to enjoy it. You can't make yourself do it because it's quite demanding. Timeframes and squash tight timeframes are always never particularly enjoyable, but at the same time there's something about them that you kind of get that buzz that you get when you're working like a crazy person, so somehow they're weirdly enjoyable as well, I guess. And this is not that you don't enjoy it, but one of the biggest challenges I think is managing clients, particularly when you have a large group of a client group, and I guess managing that process of working through with multiple people, multiple ideas, and trying to distill down to what a building might be. Clients are essential to what we do, and they're the most important part of what we do. And working with them is great most of the time. It's not enjoyable. It's a challenge and a key part of getting a building right is understanding what they're looking for and listening to them. And so I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges. Other things that are difficult really is probably just the amount of work that we get through and the amount of time that we have is probably by and large the biggest thing. You're constantly having to be pushing, which is any jobs like that, I guess, really, at the end of the day. So yeah.
With Penn being architecture is this dream job.
Yep.
We love it. One being living hell.
Yep.
What would you put it on a scale as for architecture of 1 to 10?
I'd put it as probably an 8. I think I think there's elements of it that actually, one of the biggest frustrations is the time that a project takes to materialise. I think for me, I've been, I guess, a bit unlucky over my 10 years at it that a lot of stuff I worked on hasn't been built. And so, whilst I enjoy the design process, sometimes it'd be nice to see something come out of the ground. And I think that's probably why I said 8. And back to the woodworking thing too, you make something and it's done, it's there. It materialises in your hands, and there's something really enjoyable about that immediate kind of gratification. The challenges and the mix of types of work in architecture, I think, is probably what makes it great. And 8.5 maybe.
The next question you've also touched on is what are some of the biggest challenges you face? And I guess then is there anything else you want to add to that?
I have to say I've been really lucky in terms of workplace, and people I've worked with have been like superb, both in small practice and in being in bigger practice as well. And I think that can be a challenge for a lot of people. I've been really lucky with that, and that's been a real positive for my learning curve, and I've had great people to learn from and work with. Other challenges, I mean, we're just balancing life with work. There's an inclination, I think, in architecture that you get so buried in a project that you just want to keep working on it sometimes, and trying to balance that with your family and friends and everyone else as well can be quite difficult at times. You know, something you learn to do, I think, as well. So over time, you kind of get used to that. But overall, I've got a pretty positive experience of architecture generally. So I'd encourage anyone who wants to do it to get into it. Really, it's really good. So yeah.
If you can go back to when you first started, say your first year of architecture school.
Yeah.
Would you have any advice for your younger self? Would you do anything differently?
Oh, I'd probably not leave everything to the last minute. That's probably the biggest thing. I was notoriously would just noodle around for weeks and weeks on end, and then pull something out at the last minute, which is usually okay, but just have to work yourself into the ground to get it done. That's probably part of it. And I think another thing I'd say is to look for more diverse opportunities through your studies as well, as much as you can, to really try and get the best out of that university experience you can, because there's so many opportunities that I didn't necessarily take up for whatever reason at the time. Construction trips or exchanges or anything like that, I think is really beneficial to broaden your experience and your scope of what you've done. I think is probably what I'd say. But either that or go and do something else. No, no, not at all. I'm pretty happy with my choice. So yeah.
How bloody cool was that? If you haven't checked out the full-length film Behind Closed Doors, The Life of an Architect, you've got to set some time aside for that, because it's pretty incredible what some of these guys have to share with you, some information and resources that will be really helpful if you're thinking about studying architecture or you just want to get an insight into the profession. So if you want to check that out, you can click that button to the side here, or if you just want to go on with the next interview, check out that button to the side there. Catch you there.